Hello, this is Tim Law with Planet Forward Coaching and Self-Reliance U. Always remember your life, your dreams, your goals, and your career are all essential. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Big thank you to over 350 people that have subscribed to this channel, Planet Forward Coaching. I much appreciate it. If you haven't already, please do so. I'm very, very happy to have a guy that I've known, gosh, going on over 20 years at this point. Been a good friend for a long time. He is a college wrestling Hall of Fame coach for 21 years at York College, was an All-American himself, is an All-American wrestler. And Tom Kessler, welcome to Planet Forward Coaching. Let's hear your story, my man.
Well, thanks for having me, Tim. So appreciate being here with you. So, well, we go back to going into 7th grade, and I was going to be a basketball player. So I think we talked about that, and I didn't realize at that time I was definitely vertically challenged, but it played at elementary and everybody played basketball. And then a friend of mine said, Tom, you know what, you should go out for wrestling. You compete against guys your same size. And I was 72 pounds, believe it or not, in 7th grade. So I gave it a shot, and the rest is history. I mean, I guess like most sports, once you get involved, you can't give it up. So that was my start. I didn't win any matches in 7th grade, but I wanted to get better, and it's what wrestling does. It pushes you. And so the next year, a couple wins here and there. I got up to 80 pounds, and I was wrestling at Dallastown. And then as I got a little bit bigger, I did wrestle 105 my senior year. So probably a reason why I didn't play football. It just wasn't big enough, but got some success my senior year, and then the hook was in me. So
yeah, and also I have to make sure that we thank you for your service, Tom, too, because I know you were in the Air Force for 4 years, and I guess you said you weren't quite sure about going on to college right after high school. So tell us about that a little bit.
Right. Well, in high school, I did well. I didn't get to states, which is kind of everybody's goal. I took 4th in the district, top 3 wins. So got a couple of fillers, but nothing like any other 18-year-old, not sure what I want to do with my life. So I ended up kind of flipping hamburgers and doing some things. And then I just decided to join the Air Force. So it's kind of ironic because I saw Coach Oyster's tape and same deal, Now I didn't go to college at first, but which is probably what went down the same road he did, probably not doing the right thing. So joined the Air Force, and great thing, learned the discipline there, and wrestled some tournaments while I was in the Air Force and did pretty well up in New York. And then once I got out 4 years, I wanted to go to college and get my degree, and took some classes when I was in the Air Force. So I was kind of, knew what the deal was as far as, what you had to do. And so I ended up calling Coach Oxane at York College, who I spoke to before, and got in on the team, went in 2nd semester and started right away, and actually qualified for the national tournament that first year. So,
wow, that's impressive. Especially after being, away from it, the strong competition. That's very impressive being able to do that.
Right. And I had a great workout partner all those years, a kid named Rich Willichek from New Jersey came in. We were right at the same weight and battled back and forth. And I mean, he made me a better kid, and I'm sure I made him better. And, when you put somebody in your back, and we would tap someone, we wouldn't tap each other, let us up, because we knew the guy wasn't going to let you up. So he graduated the year before I did. And he came back my senior year and worked out with me. And my dad flew him out to nationals and got to see me become an All-American. So pretty special moments, and just things you never forget.
Sure. Well, and as far as making All-American, it's a top 8 in the country, and no easy feat to make, because you're in there with some great people that have already qualified, as you and I already know. So the idea that you make All-American and make that pedestal is very, very impressive. Well, how about going forward, Tom? How did you get involved as far as coaching there at York College, where you were very successful for 21 years? You ended up being in the Hall of Fame for the National Hall of Fame coach and everything. How did the York College deal get started for you?
Well, I actually started out at Dallastown. I was coaching their junior high for a couple of years, had some fantastic teams, and they went on to become district champs for, Coach Gable. Mm-hmm. And I had 2 great men. You look at who kind of molded you back at that time. And you talk about seventh grade, there was a guy by the name of Al Owens that pulled me out the hallway and, said, you should be a wrestler, along with my friend's dad I talked about. And I can remember in seventh grade going in his room, and they were working on our scripts and strength and, Dallas Cradle. So, Al Owens and Bill Benz at Dallastown, they were great coaches to kind of mentor me. So I was at Dallastown for a couple of years, though, once those guys both stepped down, and Dave Gable, who's still at Dallastown doing a job there. He was a head coach. And so I was junior high, and a couple good teams. And then I knew coach was getting out at your college, and he kind of said, hey, what do you think? And I said, yeah, let's see what happens. So I went in and was a assistant for 1 year under him. And then luckily Jeff Gamber was the athletic director, then took a chance on me and hired me. And I was probably 30s, kind of young to be a college coach. And then boy, from there, I was thinking about it, Tim, when you take over, my first year I had maybe 12 kids, and a couple of them at the first semester decided they didn't want to do it. And, so we're just kind of hanging on and kind of feeling our way around. And then after a while, it's just like, what? We start getting recruits coming in. And I mean, I was known to have 40 or 50 kids on my roster, and I took anybody because I thought every kid should have an opportunity
Sure.
to compete. We're Division III, we don't give scholarships. And then just from being the head coach, I mean, next thing, your aspirations are looking at, we need to get kids in the national tournament. We need to be nationally ranked. We need to have All-Americans. And it kind of took off from there. And the next thing I know, we got 4 kids going to nationals. 1 year we took 6. And when we get out there, it's like you said, it's very tough to become an All-American. And a lot of those kids are Division I kids that drop down at some of the big schools like Augsburg and Wartburg. And so, I mean, you have to have a little luck, and you have to be on that day. And so we're kind of lucky. And you get out there, and now next thing you know, I wasn't even thinking about that when I started. Now we're looking ahead, we're scouting kids, we're seeing what we have to do. And it's, it was pretty exciting. And I got to say, I had unbelievable assistant coaches. I started out with Ronnie Myers came with me from Dallastown Junior High. And then Dave Steele was a kid that came with me. And then the big one, Mark Lentz, Mark was with me for a long time. And Mark was an unbelievable technician and, funny guy. And Joe Dominic was the head coach down at Susquehanna. He came in and was on staff for quite a few years, and unbelievable recruiter. I mean, the great story about him is he called the wrong number one night and ended up talking to this lady for like 20 minutes. He could talk to anybody.
Did she end up coming on the team, Tom?
She might have came to York. I don't know if you remember Timmy Bowman. He's a 2-time All-American.
Yes.
From Maryland. And I know Tim said Joe called him all the time, and he finally said, Joe, I'm coming. So, I mean, you got to have those kind of guys that are persistent. And, once Mark left, and I had Dwayne came on staff, my 2-time national champ, and Corey King came on. He was a good recruiter. And so you never take credit as a head coach, because there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that are helping you out. And all those guys, and I probably might have forgot some guys, but they were the main assistant coaches that really were there. We all had the same vision. We wanted kids to become better, become good people, become academic All-Americans. I mean, we really stress academics. I have more academic All-Americans than wrestling. Now, obviously, being a wrestling coach, I want to have the wrestling All-Americans, but, none of my kids are making a living wrestling now. So academics is the main thing. They get out and they became police officers or whatever career fields they decide to take.
Yeah. How many All-Americans did you end up having, Tom?
Wrestling, I think we had 19 wrestling. I'll just look these up because I had 25 academic All-Americans.
Wow.
And it was tough because they had a formula there, and you probably know we wrestled a very tough schedule. I tried to get the best, to make my guys the best. We wrestled Penn State in the dual Lock Haven. We had some big schools, Division II schools. And so part of the formula there to be an academic was you had to have a 75% winning percent. And so some of my kids that were tough, they couldn't get there because they didn't have that percentage, because our schedule was really, really tough. But it made them, better when we got to the national tournament.
Sure. Yeah. Going against those D1 guys is really something. And certainly the D2s and D3s are very, very solid and competitive too. How about your teaching career, Tom? I know you're You're a seventh grade social studies teacher there at Northeastern Middle School. And what are your thoughts as far as the teaching position as well?
Well, yeah, when I got out, got out of, when I got into education, I got hired at Manitou Academy, which was like an all ed program.
Uh-huh.
I was there for a couple of years, and then once things they started kind of phasing us out a little bit, and I got lucky to get hired at Northeastern as their all ed teacher. So that I was all ed for probably 10 years
Hmm.
until they moved that program. And then I got big shoes to fill. Steve Shedden was a social teacher, a great guy. He actually went to York College, and I think he wrestled 1 year, but then he got into weightlifting.
Yeah.
So I took
Yeah,
his.
I'd love to get Steve on an interview, or trying to track him down if I can, but he would be a good one. Yeah, but
Great
go
guy,
ahead.
great guy and a great teacher, and
Yeah.
like I said, I got to step into his classroom and yeah, can't take his place. He's unbelievable. But so that was in the classroom at Northeastern, which I think it's like 8 or 9 years now on the blue team. And then once I got out of coaching at York College, just time to kind of go. When it's your time, but took a year off, and then Mark and I kind of got back into coaching a little bit at Northeastern. We did the junior high team 1 year, and had some pretty good success, and then moved up in a couple of years with the varsity, and had a couple of good kids wrestle for us there. So
Yeah, you certainly did. Blaine Yinger, winning the districts. I remember being up there with Nick Dettori and yourself. You guys are down on the mat. He's wrestling that Northern kid who was a great big strong kid, and managed to pull it out in the last 7 seconds. And that was pretty amazing as far as that was concerned. But yeah, you had some good solid kids there.
yeah, and we had Cole Wilson coming through. It was a tough kid down at Campbell now. And I got to tell you about Yinger winning that match against Northern. He hit this thing called this move that I showed him. So that's kind of what got him through. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, what was it? What was the Fat Man roll or something?
Well, we actually called the elevator. Where you put your there and flipped him over, and he hit that thing with like 3 seconds ago.
Yeah, I think he picked up like 4 points or something, if I recall, because he needed at least 1 or 2 at that point, and he came up with, I think, 4. And you and Nick jumped right out of your chairs, man. It was wild watching that. 'Cause I'm trying to scout something else, but that was amazing win by Blaine, that's for sure.
Yeah, good times, good memories.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, and Cole Wilson, obviously went on and took down Blaine's total win record. I think Cole ended up with like 136 wins. Blaine had like 113, 114, something like that, which I know, you get hit that 100, you're in some rear air right there if you hit 100 wins in high school or college, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like Cole came in, he was, way above most kids coming in ninth grade or starter, and he probably got 20, 25 wins in ninth grade. So, but you do see that now happening a lot with some kids.
Sure. How about some of the role models, Tom, that you've seen as far as some of the best collegiate wrestlers that you've seen, whether they were D3, D1, any commentary on some of those? I mean, obviously Cale Sanderson at Penn State went through perfectly at 159-0 and just was amazing. But some of the wrestlers you've seen that were some of the top guys.
Well, I got the privilege to meet Dan Gable at breakfast with him, which was really, really cool. So he's a legend. A lot of people probably, I hope they still remember him. You have to be a wrestler, but pretty neat, I remember when we were looking at a program, we actually went up to Penn State, and when I first started coaching, and we kind of picked John Fritz's brain about what they do in the room up there. And we wanted to kind of mirror the same thing and, taper back and have the kids ready for the national tournament. And once again, when you're doing that, you're looking at Iowa back then when, 10, 20 years ago, they were the top of the line. Now, of course, I've got to meet Cale Sanderson. He's been at some of our camps, and, what he's done is just phenomenal at Penn State. So just real exciting every year to watch D1 nationals. And he goes in this year, definitely an underdog, and they have 4 national champs. So.
Yeah, they did fantastic. Tom, what are some of the advice you'd give to, young kids coming up, whether they're in wrestling or sports, band, music, extracurricular things, being involved? what would be some of your suggestions to, some of the younger kids, you know, as they come up through the grades there?
Well, I mean, you gotta find something that you really like, and, hopefully for me, obviously it'd be wrestling, but we talk to kids, and I don't care if you play the piano or whatever, but you got to put the time in, and a lot of kids today want to play those video games and, just don't want to get off that couch. So, but you do get some that you gotta, it's sacrifice, I think back to my times and you got to push yourself. Like John said, you got to make yourself uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
remember at nights I'm getting out of bed, I'm getting up and 10 o'clock, I'm going for a run, just for weight control and, to get in shape. And I mean, wrestling definitely teaches the sacrifice that you put in, whether it's, making the weight, you have to make the weight, the dedication to the program. And just, as I said before, you got to push yourself. And if you can find somebody that has the same mindset as you, like I had Rich Wilczek, we pushed each other, but boy, that goes forever. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, just the idea that, like I say, having a passion for something, and that is a concern of mine as well, that, when you see the amount of, gaming and social media, et cetera, and then we've gone through this whole COVID thing. The challenge is I see a lot of this COVID thing this past year. It's almost like enforced laziness where, and not really the kids' faults. I mean, they had to go on the, online and so on and so forth. But the idea that those things are, they are absolutely addicting for sure. And to try to get a kid to go from doing some of that to doing wrestling or any sport, I mean, it's like almost asking them to climb Mount Everest, without any kind of training. It's just really, really tough thing to do.
Yeah, it's a very tough year with COVID. And I know a lot of seasons got wiped out. I know York didn't get to wrestle this year.
Mhm.
Very disappointing. And I know last year they were actually out there at the national tournament on Thursday getting ready to go, and they shut them down. So, but I know, once again, you just got to have those kids that are going to push through this. And we always taught our kids, you got to have goals. No matter what you do in life, you got to have a goal, whether it's to win 20 matches or to get in the starting lineup or, and we used to have our kids write those down, and we would pull them at the end of the year. And, every kid on the team would write down what his goals are and, what his aspirations are, what he's going to do to get to those goals. And then at the end of the year, we would look at those and say, all right, here's what you wanted to do. How we miss it, what didn't we do? And, some kids may say, hey, I didn't put in the work, maybe I was down at Merce Study Hall too many nights, whatever that case may be, but
Yeah.
I think one thing that made us really proud is we got a lot of kids at York College that weren't state champs. They didn't make it to states, but they came in and they kind of bought into our program and they got better. And we saw that, and a lot of the kids, we got a wall with our All-American plaques on, or at least we used to. I'm sure they're still up there. And kids would come in, I'm thinking, Matt Shanowski and Jerry Bound and some of these kids in New Jersey and said, you know what, Coach, I never got in a wall in my high school room, but I'm on the wall here. I'm an All-American here at York College. And that's pretty cool. So we had kids improve, they bought into what we were doing and they got better and they put the time in and they got in the weight room and they did everything that they had to do. And I mean, college is a little different. There's a lot of challenges there. There's a lot of the pitfalls, you got, obviously you got girlfriends and you have, the social life and you have not going to class and, it's a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of distractions for sure. No question about it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, any last second thoughts, Tom, before we wrap it up? And please stick around after once I shut the recording off. There any last thoughts that you have here?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great ride. I kind of miss it, and getting to the national tournament and seeing the coaches, and that was the big thing, and seeing how you can do, and I always think of this one thing about kids getting better, and Dwayne was my two-time national champion.
Dwayne Bastris, yeah.
Yeah, he's the head coach now, and just an example of just always pushing yourself. I'll just never forget this. I'm flying back his junior year, and Dwayne just became a national champ, and we're sitting on the plane, just taking it all in. It's the first national champ, that York College has ever had in Division III. And what he asked me, he said, "What can I do to get better, Coach?"
Yeah.
You talk about the drive and stuff, and that's the kind of kids that we had, that's the kind of kids we're looking for, good morals, hard workers, and yeah. So it's fun times. I'm glad you let me kind of reminisce here. It's like we said earlier, it's hard to believe I've been out of this now for 8 years, but we got all these great memories that I'll never lose. So
Sure.
a lot of great.
Well, and having a long wrestling background myself, what's great, Tom, and I'm preaching to the choir to you is that, you get together, you're very competitive with these guys, whether it's in the room or against, but then, there's guys that I've known for decades now that were teammates, and then guys that I competed against, we're still friends to this day. We love catching up with each other. It's just, and then the war stories go on and they get exaggerated. You know how it goes.
Yeah, my first All-American was in 1992. It's going to age me now. And that kid still calls me at least once a month, Darren Archangelo. He's down in Delaware. And
wow,
he was my first, he won, he came in second in the national tournament with a broken hand, and just unbelievable up at Coast Guard Academy. I got some great stories about that, but he still calls me probably once a month. And of course he tells me he made me, maybe that's true, but
well, it's interesting you say that, because that was one thing that Coach Eister said, was that's one of his big things. And I know you saw his interview, was having his kids be ready for that big moment. He says, because they'll remember that for decades, because they were on the center stage, the Fred Mulbas, the Antonio Rizzuto's, guys that you and I know real well, among others that, lived through that big moment. And obviously this guy you're referring to from Maryland, obviously this memory is still there, 30 years later.
Oh yeah. 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 We always always try to coach those guys going out, it's just the same size match, just like the movie, The Hoosiers, the room's the same height and stuff like that. And so we would take our guys out and, say, guys, the same mat, get them mentally prepared. Another thing that was kind of neat was we told our guys, what, you look good, you feel good, you dress good, and you wrestle good. And Nancy and I used to always tell them, look at your coaches, look how good we look, So, when we went away, our guys dressed up. We didn't come in the gym with sweatpants on. And I can tell you in 2011 or 12, and this is a local kid, Chris Albright and Alex Morticello, and those guys, when they went to weigh in the national tournament in the morning, those guys had ties on.
Yeah.
I'll just never forget that. You know what I mean? And guess what? Those guys were both two-time All-Americans.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Absolutely.
Another thing the guys bought into. So.
Yeah, just got to have those standards, Tom. And obviously, you've had them for a long time. And hey, this has been fantastic. Please hang around for a minute or two after we're done here, okay? But thank you for taking the time to do this. Looking forward to catching up with you some more for sure.
All right, Tim. I appreciate you having me. Thanks for bringing back those memories. Good night for that. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.